So our final panel conversation now. It's really great to have Richard Smith, who's the co-founder and head of sales of Refract. And he's been building a conversational intelligence business over the last few years, which really now has set the mark and come alive because of the result of remote working. So, day in, day out, he's listening to calls and getting underneath the skin of what it takes to be effective in sales. Julian Johns, who is the VP of sales of a company in Norway now called Memory, and he's been a stalwart and champion, I would say, of the SDR. And actually, I just want to point this out because it's quite personal, this community we've put together. And Julian was one of the individuals who arrived very early on, many years ago, to get behind us going into an SDR and champion the SDR, because it's such an important function. And a few weeks ago, we did that where we announced the top 50 SDRs in the UK. And if you haven't checked that out, go and check that out on the channel. So great to have you on board, guys. Owen, I'll leave it to you.
Thanks, James. How's things, guys? You all right?
Very good, thanks.
You're not bad at all.
Good. Well, you've seen from the last half an hour that we need to just fire here, because otherwise we end up getting through about a third of the questions that I think we should and the points. So let's kick into it. Richard, I'll start with you. Massive question. So you have to be careful as to how you answer this, because it could take 10 minutes easily. What's the best way to coach SDRs, particularly, I guess, in these times when most are now working from home, so they're quite cut off, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think for many SDRs, when you say cut off, Owen, they've been cut off since they've joined the company. If they've been hired this year, and I'm speaking with SDRs who haven't even, met their colleagues in person or in their boss, and appreciate different companies are in different situations. And it's a bit of a lonely place. They're kind of sat at home in their spare bedrooms like I am right now, or on their kitchen tables, and trying to kind of figure it all out as they go along. They've been through their onboarding, and now it's kind of like, okay, go ahead and generate some pipeline for us. I think key really is about engagement. SDRs have never needed their managers and their peers more than they do now. A lot of them, not all, are very young people just starting their career in sales, and so they just need to feel connected. It's amazing, obviously, as well as some of our customers. I'm sure Julian will talk about Refract specifically, but a lot of our customers are just we're seeing just using Zoom really effectively as part of the coaching process. Doing things like team role play sessions on Zoom with new hires. One of the things that we do here at the team here at Refract is, and this has been a kind of a stalwart of our cadence every week for months now, is team coaching every Friday morning. Everyone gets on Zoom. We play calls out, in front of the whole group. I almost act as the kind of the composer, if you like, and just let the team kind of stop and start and give their opinions on, what's working in the calls, what they're hearing, sharing ideas. And even, a lot of coaching that we're seeing at the minute is just being done remotely, doing things like practice sessions. You're buddying up SDRs with each other, getting them on a Zoom session, and just doing like an hour of role play with each other, and just getting super comfortable with that. But yeah, I think really key in all of this is just engagement. It's about managers stepping up to the plate and just making sure that their team are feeling well supported, especially in these times when they're cut off from their team.
I guess you've got to be constantly evolving the process, because if it's not engaging and they haven't got that organic around them all the time, it's so easy for it to become repetitive, the same stuff, and to disengage from that process. Julian, from your perspective, what do you do to keep the process engaging when it comes to coaching your team?
Well, I think the first thing is actually that I do actually spend time coaching them, and as a VP, it's tough because you don't have the time, as much time as you'd like to have. And then one of the earlier participants talked about you're building a brand new outbound sales function. That's exactly what we're doing here. You think you have enough time, and then suddenly hours get eaten away. And so, so the first thing is actually you should spend time. But I also realized, and I certainly held my hand up very quickly here, I can't do it all myself. So I'll take them through the BDR playbook or the sales playbook, and and every quarter we'll reiterate that. So there's always the fresh stuff coming, and they have to bring things they've learned. So that keeps them engaged, right? They can't just sit back. Clearly with Refract, the biggest challenge I had is that while I've been a huge fan of Refract for a couple of years now, I don't have the time to do all of that coaching myself. So I've made sure that I've clearly through Refract, they have a great relationship with a guy called John Richardson, who we've now used to do the one-to-one coaching through the platform. So I can step away a bit, actually, and it really helps because they can get the one-to-one stuff with John through Refract, right? All the calls, etc., and all the analysis, and then they come to me and they go, "Hey, why don't we try this? Can we do this?" And that keeps them energized because I don't have all the answers. I really don't, and so it's nice to have that loop of inspiration, which is kind of comes from somebody outside. So for me, it's
brilliant.
Yeah, if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's absolutely great. Thank you. And if you think about a new SDR, and I'm looking at that front end because we talked about what do you do before you hire, then we talked about the hiring and onboarding process. Let's look at that first 3 months. There's not a right and a wrong answer, and I think it's very dependent on the type of product you're selling and the market you're working in, and all those sorts of things. But what's a good amount of coaching to give an SDR in that 3 months? Because I've seen people overdo it and not let them go and learn and do it on the job, and equally I've seen people leave alone, and Shabby talked about that, and you just expect disaster. Well, where do you sit in terms of what's right and what's wrong? I'd be interested to hear briefly from both of you on that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I do think you're right there, Owen. There's kind of maybe a risk of feeling like you're kind of just mothering the SDR too much and not letting them kind of make mistakes. And if I just think back to my career, I learned by making mistakes, by having, people hang up on me and messing up my words on calls and people not responding to emails. It's kind of part of your whole coaching and learning is you can't learn if you don't kind of learn to fail, first of all. So I'm a big believer of just letting people try stuff, but also letting people try stuff that is new that we haven't tried before as a team. And I encourage SDRs to say, hey, if you think you've got new ideas for even things like call openings or whatever they may be, I'm not going to stand in their way. I say, here, try it out. Like so much of sales and prospecting is split testing, and we have to obviously keep as current as possible. So I think for me, that definitely in the early stage of this SDR's career is where they need the most coaching. Like it's just you've got to get them, that intensity has got to be higher. But I think it's the right balance of maybe spending like an hour a day just doing that coaching, but then the rest of the time just letting them actually execute. And then the next day, kind of revisiting how they executed and whether there's more refinement. So, and I think once you start to get in a position, from my experience, when they're becoming consistent of just generating those appointments, they may not be smashing it out the park, but they're showing that they've got that rhythm and that they've kind of getting it. Then it becomes, less of a daily thing than maybe more of just a weekly occurrence. I don't know. Julian has different experiences there.
No, I mean, I've made a very conscious effort to hire experienced SDRs here, because to your point, I didn't have the time to give them the opportunity to learn what the intensity is like, because the SDR role, I'm a huge advocate of it. It's the best gateway to understanding how a business performs, to allow you then to become an AE, into marketing, into support. It really is a fantastic entry into the role of how a business operates. I didn't have the luxury, unfortunately, of bringing brand new people. So on the flip side, how can I then make their ramp up more successful? And for me, it was understanding, well, how can they make connections quickly with other people in the business to help them be successful? So they have to do is 2 weeks ramp up in terms of training, but not intense. And then towards the end of the second week, they have to write their own competitor matrices. They have to understand some key messaging points and personas. But I tell them it's already been written before, and there are 2 people in the business they have to speak to that they haven't spoken to already to complete it. And so they don't have to reinvent the wheel, because why should they? It's already out there. But guess what? People don't like working from a blank slate anyway. So as a result of that, the collective knowledge improved. People knew and could connect. So that's the main thing of the first 2 weeks. And then the coaching periodicity within in memory is that we have a 2-week team session on Refract primarily. But then we also have weekly sessions on a Friday where we go through some discos, discovery calls, ICP, what went wrong with the ICP. It's because I can talk about process rather than about the application of their daily role at this stage. So it's much easier for me to go onto that quicker with experienced SDRs.
So how quickly do you get to the point where you think that coaching is working and have an impact versus, I guess the question is, everybody coachable versus, hang on, I'm putting a lot of time into this person, we're not moving forward. So have you got a sense check on how long that process could take if it was worst case?
Yeah, it's a classic case of most companies aren't actually measuring coaching effectiveness. Obviously the massive leading indicator is, are the results going in the right way? Of course, are those meetings getting booked? Are they the right quality of meeting? Are those meetings holding when they're getting scheduled? But I think I say this a lot, Owen, when it comes to coaching is you can't just make the mistake that many sales leaders have of just coaching by the numbers, saying, okay, you only got these results, you need to do
more.
Yeah. And it's kind of anybody can look in a CRM, and any even intelligent SDR who's out of university or even, just in their first job in sales is intelligent enough to look at the reports and the dashboards and see, okay, my results weren't where they needed to be. The key is understanding why you got those. And it sounds so simplistic, but all of the answers are in their activity, in the specifics, whether it's looking at their written outreach or whether it's just looking at the calls. One of the things that we do in Refract in our product is you can create simple scorecards saying, okay, these are the things the things that we are measuring you're against on your prospecting calls. It could be your call openings, it could be your positioning statement, it could be your objection handling, and it could be how you even things like your tonality. And we're basically grading the calls. Some people might feel that's old school. I'm saying it's actually really helps make it measurable, helps give the SDR some tangible idea of, okay, I know I'm super strong in my call openings, but the thing that I need to work on is understanding when to close the prospect down for a meeting and what to say, because that's what I scored less on. And the following week, the key thing as a manager is to say, okay, I'm going to do a call coaching session with the SDR. Before I jump in, let's remind myself of where they scored last time around. Okay, we identified this was the specific development area. What I'm looking for is seeing if they've made progress in that area. And that's the key. That's how you know that coaching has been effective, because if they have taken on board the coaching, if they found it valuable, they will put it into practice. If they aren't putting it into practice, it usually tells me one of two things. One, they may be lacking in their coachability, or secondly, the coaching, the guidance, the feedback you gave as a manager was not on point. But all of the answers as far as measuring effectiveness, it's in what they're actually doing in practice, and you have to inspect to figure that out.
Yeah, brilliant. So can SDRs self-coach? So it's all on leaders to coach. Huge amount of time and resource. We talked about an hour a week, so that tells you very quickly or an hour a day. Sorry. So if you've got 8 SDRs, you're suddenly out, or 7 SDRs, you're not doing anything else, are you? So it's a time-intensive thing in the early stages. Is there a way of getting SDRs to self-coach and contribute to that journey themselves? Julian, what about your experience with that?
I think yes, absolutely. I think as long as you give them the opportunity to understand what metrics it is you'll measure them against, and they have a full, clear, and transparent understanding of what that means. So, whether it's scorecards in Refract, whether it's core connect times within outreach that we use, get them to understand, okay, when are you performing best? How are you performing best? What scenario? What was it about that particular way you handled that call that helped you perform best? Now, again, it all starts with the hiring process. You have to hire people who are open to understanding they can learn. And as Elena was talking about, it's more than just their experience. Are they willing to understand their job title? Are they willing to show that they can learn and be adaptable? I'm extremely fortunate that most of the SDRs that I've ever worked with, every single one of them wants to improve, the low performing and the high performing ones. And so they're always looking for something. And the second thing I've always worked out, SDRs as a crew are wonderfully supportive. And I'm sure I heard something Richard say this. I'm going to paraphrase you, Richard, so apologies. Talking about being competitive, while it involves other people, actually is about yourself. If you can raise your own game, compete against yourself, then everybody else raises their talent levels. And so you look for that contribution that they make to their own performance, and you also hold them accountable for it, because we hire adults, right? We do hire adults. We're not hiring kids, we're hiring adults. They've got a job to do. So for me, it's like you combine that together with that autonomy that you give them. Clearly, you coach them, you give them the tools they need. You don't let them on their own. But yeah.
just add on to this as well, Owen, how can you get SDRs like just learning them like self-learning? We're seeing massive value right now, especially in these kind of remote times when, as I said, a lot of people are working from home, cut off. They don't have their kind of like peer sat next to them, their mate that they can tap on the shoulder and kind of debrief a call that just went miserably wrong. Is just by sharing the wins. Like, so, one of the features that we've just launched is the ability to that. Let's imagine an SDR's just booked a call that's resulted in a meeting, is that everybody in that Slack channel to get a recording of the conversation that led to that meeting. And so, like, what you're doing there is you're coaching just by spreading the wins of, like, here's a call that's literally just taken place in, a town down the road with your peer, and here's what it sounds like. And, you can learn so much by just listening to what's working in your team. That whole, as Julian said, it's that tribe mentality of supporting each other, and just simply take, I've said this a lot in sales, take what's working, use it yourself, and model yourself on the best.